Welcome to our annual Port of Los Angeles Waterfront meeting. And I have to tell you, this is one of the meetings that I really enjoy because it gives us a chance to look back at what's been accomplished the past year and then talk about some of the things coming ahead. And if you haven't had a chance to get down around the waterfront and see all the things that are new, I'll be able to show you what's going on. We're going to talk about the projects that are underway, and then we're going to talk about some of the future projects. I know everyone wants to know about Ports at Call, so we'll talk about that. I want to talk about some of our special events and what we're doing to promote the waterfront. And then we'll open it up for comments or questions. And, you know, this is not like a formal public hearing. We like to try and answer your questions here tonight if we can. Otherwise, we can get back to you. So, looking back at some of our successes in last year, 2012. The big one, the USS Iowa, an independent marketing study had said that they would get 215,000 visitors the first year, but they had 330,000 visitors that bought tickets. There's been a lot of other people on that ship, you know, for various events and things, but in terms of attendance, people who bought tickets, 330,000 people came to San Pedro. So, big wow for the guys at the USS Iowa. And you know, I get all their emails about all the cool things they're finding out about the elevator shaft for the president and things like that. So we are now working with them to get shoreside power to the ship so that they can turn off their auxiliary engine, because it's, you know, it's like before our cargo ships started plugging in, they were burning auxiliary engine, and it costs money to supply that fuel, so that'll help lower their operating expenses. About those visitors that came, 19% came from out of state, and 5% came from other countries. So that's really interesting data. Okay, Crafted also opened last year on June 29th. They have had, so far since they've opened, 327 visitors. They keep very accurate records there, as you can see. As of this October 1st, there will be 106 artisans that are selling their wares at Crafted. And Long Beach Derby girls came to Crafted just this last Saturday, September 14th. So the roller derby is going to be there. And Crafted now is looking at opening up the other warehouse, warehouse number 9. They're doing a little bit different in warehouse number 9. They're looking for a strong anchor. So they're shifting their business model a little bit for this warehouse. And so they're working with Brewery West. This is a regional brewery that bottles craft beer. Under their lease, they're allowed to have a restaurant there. And so they're working with Crafted on how they can devise lots of activities associated with a brewery there, food events. They're actually talking about having the artisans making labels for the brewery, having special brewery tours for the cruise passengers. And so it sounds pretty exciting. They believe that if they move forward with that, that will bring another 50,000 to 180,000 people to visit this Crafted. So that's pretty exciting. Last year, we also had the grand opening of the Angels Gate Lighthouse. And the Cabrillo Beach Boosters did such a fabulous job. I always think about I should give them another project to do. They completed the renovation of the exterior of the lighthouse, and now they're planning a project to renovate the interior of the lighthouse. So they're going to be doing some fundraising for that. New signage and parking at the cruise terminal. I don't know about you, but sometimes I've had a hard time finding my way out of the parking lot. So we actually have some new signage going in. There's also automatic pay machines, and the cost is $1 an hour to park there, and you can go to an automatic machine and put your money in. And those automatic machines are going to be installed this next year on the Catalina side. They're already in over on the cruise terminal side and also where the Iowa is. Another thing that opened, I think, which is one of our best kept secrets, is the Catalina Express new terminal. And the reason I say it's a great secret, and when you find out about it, people are very surprised. It is a great place to go down there for the evening, They have a restaurant there. They have a bar. Their liquor license extends to outside the property. So you could go in, you can buy a glass of wine, and you can go and sit on one of the benches along the main channel and watch the ships go by. And people now are finding out about that. They're going down in the evenings and enjoying that. And there's also been a lot of evening receptions that are now held down there. So if you haven't been down there, it's worth going in. A lot of our employees go down there for lunchtime too. So there's great food down there. Okay, Westways Tank Farm demolition. It's done. It was completed last year, and I love this project because at the end of the project, the contractor paid us $1 million for the right to go out there and demolish the facility. And that was because the value of the scrap metal was such that he paid us to go out there and demolish the facility. So that was really exciting. We are now going to start a very long process working with the regulatory agencies to remediate the site. We think developing the plan will probably be a 2-year process. So when I talk a little bit about Alta, this is like the last phase of that development because it'll probably take us a long while to remediate the site. We opened up Ghost Fish last year. So there is a public plaza there at the SP slip. There's an overlook, there's promenade, there's landscaping, and of course the public art. The wood-crafted benches made by Harold Green and the ghost fish by Carl Chang. And so, just rather recently, we actually opened up the renovated Plaza Park. This is a picture of what it looked like before. This is the after. Just this July 1st, this park was rededicated. I have to say this was a great collaboration among the city departments. The port funded it. It was designed by the Bureau of Engineering, and the construction was done by Recreation and Parks. So this project is in a couple phases. Phase 1 and 2, which is the sidewalk and the landscaping along Beacon Street, was finished, and that's what's opened. Phase 3 is currently under design, and that is the slope stabilization. So that's being designed by Bureau of Engineering. Phase 4 is additional landscaping that comes about at 7th Street and Sampson Way come together. And that part of the project is going to be implemented when we do the Sampson Way project. Another thing that happened last year that not a lot of people know about is we rededicated Dillon Field. When we opened up 22nd Street Park a couple years ago, at the end of the event, an old timer came up to me and said, you know, this used to be called Dillon Field. And so that kind of piqued my interest. We did a little research. We contacted the Dillon family and they came to see us. From 1940 to 1970, there was a sandlot field there where kids learned to play baseball. So it was actually dedicated in June 1963 as Dillon Field in the memory of local sports hero Bobby Dillon. So we decided to honor that memory. We installed a plaque at the site. We invited the family. A lot of people who played ball as part of those teams came down to the event. On the plaque, you can see up in the corner is a picture of the kids that played baseball. And so as we're standing there and people are milling around, there's all these old guys, oh, that's me, oh, that's me. And so what we decided to do is we have all of them line up in the same formation of the picture that they took as kids. And so we have a picture of the same people as adults in the same formation. And so actually I was kind of thrilled to get that. We've got all their names on it, and of course I sent it over to our archives so we can preserve that memory. But that picture got spread around. It was kind of a great event to do that. So there's been some work done in the Outer Harbor. First of all, we relocated the Lane Victory out to berth 50. And that just happened in May, and you can see it there in the big red circle. We've done a lot of paving, grading, and utility work, and that was completed in order to be ready for the certain days of the year when we have 3 cruise ships call. So this was one of those days, May 8th, 2013. The cruise ship Soltis called here, and there she is. And so next year in 2014, we anticipate that we're going to have 4 days where a cruise ship will also use this berth because we'll have 3 cruise ships in at the same time. And so there's not enough space in the downtown cruise terminal, and so one of those ships will get relocated out to the outer harbor. But the best thing about the paving and work that was done there is now we have a place to promote for special events. And so, for example, I'll tell you a little bit about Cirque du Soleil is coming there in October. And so having a venue for special events is something that we're really working on promoting that. Another thing that happened is there's a new monument in the Wilmington Waterfront Park. It's called the First Blood Monument. It was dedicated on May 15th. It commemorates the early struggle of the longshoremen to establish regular working hours and proper wages and working conditions. There was a big fight that broke out not far from where this monument that resulted in the death of 2 strikers, and that's why they call it First Blood. About 25 people were injured. And so that happened on May 15th, 1934. So on the 79th anniversary of that event, this monument was installed. And so over there in the Wilmington Waterfront Park, it's worth going over there to take a look at it. So the other thing is we got an operator for the new Cabrillo Marina Phase 2. And so the new slips are open. I have to say we've just learned that this project also has received an award. There are also development pads at this site, about 90,000 square feet. The buildings aren't there, but there's a place for buildings to be constructed for commercial development. We're not going to go forward with them now. Our focus is on ports of call. Once ports of call is set and done, then we'll look to bringing in developers for the Cabrillo Way Marina. So let's shift a little bit to the projects that are actually under construction. First of all, the Wilmington Waterfront Art is in the fabrication stage. You may have seen there's been some mock-ups out there. The artists have been out there with their mock-ups. We have 2 different art installations that are under construction. One is the Wilmington Waves, which is the lights along the pedestrian bridges, and the other is Coastline, which is an interpretation of the historic coastline in these sandstone towers that are going to be developed along C Street. And these towers range from 1 feet tall to 14 feet tall, and they represent the historic coastline. So that's underway. The other thing that's underway now is the Wilmington Marina Parkway. This was a China shipping mitigation project. It's a $1.2 million project. What it involves is landscaping, paving, a sidewalk, and fencing improvements. So it's under construction now, and it should be completed by spring 2014. Another thing we've got underway right now is an overall parking study of the entire waterfront. And that should be completed by the end of the year. We're really looking at what parking is available out there, what do we need. We're trying to dovetail this study with the needs of the ports of call developer so that we have sufficient parking out there. So when that's finished, we'll be doing presentations to our board on that. The big thing is the downtown harbor. And so it's done. The basin is done. And I have to say, about a month ago, we brought down a lot of the new city councilmen, the controller. We had a boat, and we're doing a port up in, we're doing a tour up the main channel. I was like, oh, let's go in and check out the harbor. So we christened the harbor. We were the first boat that went into the harbor. So that was really rather exciting. So now we're working on the improvements around the harbor. One of the things that has happened is we had to shut down the red car station at 6th Street because the electricity is cut off in that area because of some of the work that we're doing for the construction for the improvements around the downtown harbor. So what's going in around the downtown harbor? Well, there's going to be a wooden promenade, sort of like a boardwalk. There's going to be an amphitheater with stone seating. There's going to be new open space in front of the Maritime Museum. There's going to be kind of an outlook pier that you can walk out. And then there's going to be a floating dock for visiting ships. So when the downtown harbor is completed, we figure we can have 10,000 people in that space. And we're going to need that space because in 2014, we are going to be ready for the Parade of Tall Ships. It's coming back in August. This project finishes in July, and it's going to be perfect for when those ships come into the harbor. The other thing that is underway at the downtown harbor is a pretty significant piece of public art done by Mark Dion. He also did the Ship in the Bottle. It is actually a 9 by 12 feet square building. So that's what's 12 by 9? It's about a little over 100 square feet. It is going to be built of salvaged materials. It's going to represent the port in the 19th century. And it is a ship chandlery shop. And so it will have a window. You can't go in it, but you'll be able to go up in it and look in it. And it's going to be outfitted with all antique things, just like you were walking into a shop in the 19th century to buy stuff for your sailing ship. And so that also will be open when the downtown harbor opens. So that'll be another thing that will draw people to the waterfront to look at. So one thing now that's drawing people to the waterfront, they're saying, what the heck is that? Friday, I was going by and I saw people from the cruise ship walking to look at this structure out there. This is a canopy that we've built over the Fireboat #2. And it is not the permanent Fireboat Museum, but it is a canopy because we wanted to protect the boat from the elements. It's a National Historic Landmark. It was built in 1925. The firemen are working on it, and so in order to make it easier for them to undertake their work and make sure that the work they're doing to restore the ship is protected from the elements, we built this canopy. People are attracted to now walking over there and seeing what it is. And it should be finished at the end of the month, and the curtains on the side kind of roll up so that people can walk along and see the firemen in there working on the ship. And so, but you know, at night or when it's raining or whatever, those things can drop down and it will protect this very valuable resource. In time for the tall ships and the opening of the downtown harbor is going to be new signage consistent with our waterfront design guidelines. And so all of the black and yellow that you see out there, those panels will come out, and depending on where you are, we have different color schemes. So in San Pedro, it's kind of the blue and white. In Wilmington, in keeping with the colors of the Wilmington Waterfront Park, which have a lot of warm colors, oranges and browns and things in the wall, they actually have the rusty color. So watch for those. Although this is not a waterfront attraction, but it actually is a waterfront attraction. It's another one of our historic buildings, and a lot of people go there on Saturday to buy fish. But we are, over a period of years, making an investment in upgrading the historic municipal fish market. We finished working on the roof, and there's been problems with the birds on the roof, and so we've put in structures, bird deterrents, to prevent the birds from impacting the roof. The next thing we have to do is drainage, to collect the drainage to be consistent with all the water board requirements. And then we're going to be, in a later phase, we're going to install a new refrigeration system for the building. There's going to be a special meeting for all of the operators in there on October 1st. The construction of that, it's under design, and it will start in spring 2014. Another thing that is coming up is Front Street. Front Street Beautification project. That is a combination of a China shipping project plus a port project. So we've taken about a $6.5 million China shipping project. We put another $3.5 million to it to do a $10 million improvement all along Front Street on both sides. So right where Front Street meets Pacific, there's kind of like this little triangular area there. There's going to be that triangular landscape improvement that will beautify that. And then all around from Vincent Thomas Bridge all the way to Pacific, that whole area is going to be landscaped. All around the bottom of Knoll Hill, and it's a little scraggly looking. So that's really to try and make a nice connection between all the improvements in San Pedro and the beautiful Wilmington Waterfront Park and the Harry Bridges street improvements. Another thing I wanted to mention, if you haven't been down to Cabrillo Beach lately, is we have finished phase 2 of what is known as the bird exclusion device. So this here in the black show you rows of poles and lines that were set up because the Regional Water Quality Control Board wanted us to deter birds from using the beach as their toilet. Okay, well, the birds out there at Cabrillo Beach are pretty smart. After we put up this bird exclusion device in the areas the birds like to hang out, the seagulls, they said, okay, Port, we'll show you. They moved in front of the bird exclusion device and just roosted there and said, you know, neater, 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 you know. And so the water board suggested we had to extend the bird exclusion device. And to be perfectly honest, whenever I have a chance among the state to make a comment about, I'm on the State Ocean Protection Council, and I use every opportunity I can say, ask the question, is it state policy that birds don't belong on the beaches anymore, that people and birds can't exist? Because frankly, I think this is not the most attractive looking thing. And so there's the issue of the aesthetics of the beach versus the issue of birds. We have spent 15 years and $20 million to ensure that no human bacteria is at the beach, and there is no human bacteria in the water at the beach, but we still keep failing when Heal the Bay comes by and they test the water. And it is because of the birds use the beach and the water as a toilet. And so we are now working with the agencies. They wanted us to put a big pump out at Cabrillo Beach, which would have affected the eelgrass, and so the National Marine Fisheries didn't want to mess with the eelgrass. And so they said, okay, no pump. And so the next thing we are trying to do is convince the state that birds are a natural source. There's no evidence that birds relate to human pathogens, and there's any connection there, and seek a natural source exclusion, which is like another science project we have to undertake. And no one in the state of California has ever gotten through this process, and those are the kind of challenges I like. So we're taking that on to see if we can convince the Regional Water Quality Control Board that birds can come to our beach. So, but if you want to know when you go out there why there's these big holes with all the wires strung, and the wires don't hurt the birds, but they sense them and they know not to land. So I'm trying, this is new now, this is just finished in August, and I'm waiting to see what the birds come up with next to get around this, because they're pretty smart. So, talk about some of our future projects. As part of the Wilmington Waterfront project, our goal is to give people in Wilmington a piece of the waterfront. And so they have their promenade, and it's a personal passion of mine to make sure they get their piece of the waterfront. So last year, I told you about the fact that we discovered that Catalina Island has a lease there that was up for expiration, and so we're working with them on how to do this. So, and I told you last year they were going to issue an RFP for a new freight provider, or you know, the contract is up in 2016. So, in November they issued their RFP for a new lease on Catalina Island for a freight provider. They issued the RFP in November. They required all the proposals due in February. And they have just finished the interview process. And I actually talked to them today to say, have you made a selection yet? Because I have this waterfront meeting, it would be nice to know. They have not selected, they've narrowed it down to 3 finalists. Once they select their operator, we will work with them and the operator they select. We look at a couple locations. We've identified a relocation site. Once we enter into an agreement with the island company and that thing gets built, then we will terminate the freight operation in Wilmington, and then we, you know, that project then is out of the way so we can advance the waterfront in Wilmington. The other project that we've been working on in Wilmington is called Avalon Triangle Park. We could write a book about Avalon Triangle Park. The site was contaminated. It had 7 buried storage tanks, underground storage tanks that had been leaking on it. It had 2 oil wells there, and also it had industrial solvents from an engine repair facility that was located at the site. So we have been working with the State Department of Toxic Substances Control for the past 9 years to get through the process to design and remediate the site. So we pretty much have a plan that's been approved. First part of the plan is to do a pilot study. We inject a material down into the soil to break down the solvents and the contaminants. We did our first pilot project and it failed to break down the contaminants. So now we're back to designing another pilot project to actually do that. And so we've already spent over $1 million on remediating the soil. We have a lot more to spend. We'll probably spend more cleaning up the site than actually construction of the park. But I wanted everyone to know that we are actively working on it, and hopefully we find the trick, the method we crack the code on how to break down that solvent that's down there. So while we know the Avalon Park is a priority for people in Wilmington, we're also advancing the work on the Beacons building. The Beacons building was adopted as the future home of the Red Car Museum, and with our permanent archives and record storage up above. So we are underway in design of the structural analysis. I have to tell you, adaptive reuse of old structures is very expensive. The structural upgrade of this building, we have a cost estimate of $20 million to upgrade the building. It is a huge building, 60,000 square feet, but adaptive reuse is, that doesn't include outfitting the building for the uses. That's just doing the structural upgrade. So right now we are moving on parallel paths. Avalon Triangle Park, Beacons building. And I told my staff, whoever gets to the finish line first can start construction. You know, let's get through these processes so we can get to construction. In the left-hand corner are two round things that I put them in the picture here because our construction and maintenance crew found this wheel out of Cabrillo Beach. They were doing some maintenance out there. They discovered this wheel. And so I didn't know what it was. Bring it over to the Banning Museum where they've been cleaning it up. And they believe it is a wheel from the railroad cars that came in here in 1899 to build the breakwater. You know, originally it left from the point there at Cabrillo Beach, and they built a trestle out there. They brought the rock in by rail, and they believe this is one of the wheels from that train that brought in that rock in 1899. And the only thing we can figure is, you know, there was a problem with the wheel. Some guy took off the broken wheel, heaved it, put another one on, and the project went forward and they built the breakwater. So for some reason, for over 113 years, that wheel's been buried somewhere in Cabrillo Beach. I have to find out exactly where. There may be other stuff there, I don't know. But anyhow, so it was kind of a thrill. And all the people that are into railroad stuff are having a lot of fun, you know, taking care of this wheel. And so it'll go on loan to the Banning Museum Transportation Museum until someday maybe the Beacons building opens and we bring it back and put it on display there. So as I said, the Beacons building is the Railroad Museum. And then on top, the Red Car Museum, and then on top is our archives records. And in case you're not aware, we did adaptively reuse the old Coast Fishing Building on Freeze Avenue in Wilmington and converted it to a temporary archives. If you haven't been over there, it's open several days a week. There are exhibits there. We have an exhibit on display now of the construction of the Vincent Thomas Bridge, because we're coming up on the 50th anniversary of the Vincent Thomas Bridge. And so go over and visit there. All of our records are going online. There's cool stuff there. And I just wanted to let people know that it's another thing to visit along the waterfront, and there are displays there. So coming up soon is the Alta Sea. There was a big event held to announce Alta Sea, the new name, the formation of the advisory committee. They have now incorporated, the nonprofit is now going for their tax status. They have actually executed a lease, and we are getting prepared to take that to our board for the site. And that lease, once it's approved by our board, then establishes certain performance criteria for the Alta C project. Essentially, it sets up fundraising, minimum goals for them to invest. It allows them to draw down pieces of the property. The first thing is berth 56, where the interpretive center goes. The lease obligates them to spend a minimum of $34 million, but right now their cost estimate is $46 million to build the interpretive center, which would be right there. Right there at berth 56. So that's the first phase. They are obligated to draw that down within 5 years, and we really anticipate that they're going to be prepared to do that fairly quickly and bring that parcel of property down. Then they could also, within 5 years, they have to tell us they're ready for Warehouse 57. They have minimum requirements in terms of fundraising. In Warehouse 57, we have an obligation to invest. So in order for us to start, they have to have raised 75% of their money. The total lease requires them to raise a minimum of $408 million. Right now, their overall cost estimate is $549 million to carry out the development in berth 56 through 60. Not this side yet, that is down the road, but this side here. So we're very excited about that. I want to tell you that when the lease is publicly available, go pull Exhibit F from the lease. It talks about the public benefits. In addition to the requirements for them to spend minimum amounts, we have performance criteria for them in terms of public outreach, in terms of economic development. So I'll just go down some of them. They have the obligation to construct the public promenade on the city dock. They have the obligation to actually do public outreach, have meetings like we would do when we're designing one of the waterfront projects. They have to develop and build the interpretive center. It's got to be a LEED gold standard building with a minimum of 5,000 square feet, dedicated to marine research interpretive exhibits, open to the public, with public restrooms accessible to both the interpretive center and to people on the promenade. It has to be free to the public, and it's got to have hours that match the Cabrillo Marine Aquarium. Upon opening the interpretive center, they're required to provide free to the public bi-weekly kindergarten through 12th grade educational tours, including the cost of bus transportation to the schools. And if you know the big thing in schools, kids are not going on field trips because they can't afford the buses. So they provide the buses to bring the kids down here. Once they're down here, they'll be able to see Alta Sea, Cabrillo Marine Museum, Red Cars, all the other stuff. But they provide the buses. We actually establish minimum requirements for the number of kids that they have to service. Bi-monthly Saturday workshops for the community on marine-related topics, a public lecture series with a minimum of 12 lectures annually, an annual open house. They have to allow community groups to use the interpretive center auditorium for a minimum of 6 events annually at no charge, but if a community groups use it, they have to provide their own security and pick up janitor and stuff like that. They have to develop a website that broadcasts not only their events, but community events. As the facility continues to be built out and they draw down other parcels, the programs are expanded in terms of number of kids reached. We have a requirement, they have so many, 5 interns in our port intern program. We have, internship opportunities, undergraduate and postdoctoral programs. They also are obligated to repurpose the degraded historic warehouses and bring in new port-related industries that are marine-related. They have economic and job benefit thresholds to meet in terms of jobs. And in exchange for all of these things, we give them a substantially reduced rent. We are also making some investment in renovating the pier, and our commitment in the first few phases is $42 million. This pier was built 100 years ago, and we just re-roofed warehouse One, the first time in 97 years. So we haven't spent a lot on that pier over the past century, and so it's catching up with us, and we're going to be doing that over time. So that's what's going on at Alta Sea. So that will be coming really soon. And the other big, and that is kind of a very early rendering. They've had different renderings. We don't know exactly what the interpretive center is going to look like, but they expect to do a signature building that in itself will be an attraction. Okay, Ports of Call. So Ports of Call today brings in 840,000 visitors a year. So we entered into an exclusive negotiating agreement with LA Waterfront Alliance. I think most of you know it's Wayne Ratkovich and Jericho Development. They had their first public outreach meeting in April 2013. There was a lot of positive feedback. And so there's been a lot of, I know people are like, what's happening? They want to see stuff. There's been a lot of urban design work done. A lot of stuff that we're doing, working with them. They're doing outreach to prospective tenants. Tonight, I'm announcing that the next public meeting will be November 19th. It's going to be 5:30 to 8:30 at the Warner Grand. And so that will be a public meeting put on by the Waterfront Alliance for them to update all of you on the status of the project, show you their ideas, and tell you a little bit about some of the conversations that they've been having with prospective tenants. We all have our sights on a premier anchor tenant, and we are working hard with the Alliance to support their efforts to land that premier anchor tenant. So the other thing that's going on at Ports of Call is we are working with Tom Yankovich to relocate the fueling facility that's at Ports of Call. Under our risk management plan, that will have to relocate. It was grandfathered in because it was there from a really long time ago. And it is moving across the channel to Berth 240 over where Southwest Marine was. Right now, we're in the process of cleaning up the site at Southwest Marine. And once that's done, the fueling facility will move over to the other side and vacate that little piece of Ports of Call. So, you know, as you know, we've pretty much been working one project, we do the design, we have public meetings, we get it under construction, then we start the next project, down the design project, have the public meetings. So what would be coming up next? Typically, it probably would have been Sampson Street, 7th Way intersection. We've also done a little work on the 7th Street Pier. I can't tell you exactly that it's 7th Street and Sampson Way. That is our next project because we are working so closely with the Ports of Call developer. We want to do the thing that helps them the most deliver their project. So it may be parts of the 7th Street alignment. It may be parts of the 7th Street Pier. We may take elements of some of the other waterfront projects and put them together and have something else that we construct. So, in our sort of going down the row, Sampson Street would have been next, but we're waiting to see what is the best thing that can facilitate the Ports of Call development. So it may be a composite of a number of the different design elements that were adopted when the board adopted the waterfront plan. So, and then, we'll start the design of those and go forward and construct them. So events. Events have been really important in showcasing the waterfront, and we've had some really great success. In our view, we brought about 500,000 additional visitors to the waterfront because of the, they came to see those attractions there. And we equate that to about 1.8 million in visitor spending. And then when you look at the folks that are out there, they're also spending money too. The people at Crafted spend money, the people at Iowa spend money. And so we're looking at overall total impact of 8.4 million. So the big events bring a lot of people. So So one Saturday, I came over here to do a boat cruise. And so, you know, we do lots of boat cruises. We take people out on the waterfront. And I have to tell you, on a Saturday, I was like, oh, do I have to go do another cruise? But it was a bunch of women, and I said, I'm coming over myself to do it, because it was a women's professional group. And I said, okay, I'll do this one myself. So I went out there on the boat cruise, and it was a fabulous cruise with these women. Boom. I get home, 2 hours later, there's an email. Oh, my friend was just on a cruise with you, and we hear you got some like interesting buildings over there, and I run Long Beach Opera, and I want to come over and see if we can perform in one of your buildings at the Port of Los Angeles. So it's like, oh my God, I felt really good about, that's why we do cruises. So if you didn't go to the opera, Long Beach Opera was here this summer. They actually wound up using, they were looking at Southwest Marine, they were looking at a lot of things that needed some work. They actually used the baggage handling building. And so they performed Macbeth there, and they had 450 people come and attend. No, actually, they were not. They looked at the baggage building. They went in the main cruise terminal. They had 450 people came over to each performance of Macbeth there this summer. And so that was another thing where people came over from, probably a lot of them from Long Beach, who haven't been to the waterfront. We said, oh, well, this is great. So that's what we're looking for. New events, new venues to the waterfront. So Cars and Stripes gets bigger every year. We had 23,000 people, 3,000 more than we had in 2012, and more than double the first event that we held in 2009. Our summer concerts keep getting bigger. We now have, you know, they started out with like 200, 150 people. Now we're getting about 700 people coming to each of the summer concerts. The Lobster Fest, of course, was another big event. 34,000 people. We set 3 Guinness Book of Records. The one I like the most is the most lobsters cooked simultaneously in the same pot. 950 lobsters. We broke the old record of 800 lobsters, so that was some really big pot. Most lobsters served, largest serving of lobsters, and I understand now you can go to your grocery store and you can buy San Pedro Fish Market in the frozen food department. So if you didn't get down to Lobster Fest, you can go still get some of the stuff at the grocery store. So the events have been really huge. Our winter events get bigger, and especially since we opened the Wilmington Waterfront Park. So Happy Harbor Halloween, we had 5,000 attendees last year, and we had another 2,500 attendees in Wilmington. And so now the big daddy coming, Cirque du Soleil. There's going to be 39 performances beginning October 11th, running through November 10th. We expect about 46,000 visitors coming to Cirque du Soleil. And so they're very excited about the Outer Harbor site. I think when people see that, you know, and they see the space there and the available parking, our goal is to have them come back over and over again as they do new shows. We are also working on other ideas, and we have a fish on the line that we're reeling in for another big event. When we had the first kickoff waterfront meeting, Ports of Call developers had the Waterfront Alliance, I was told I couldn't mention Cirque du Soleil. So I don't know, some of you may have been there. I'm talking about, oh, this event that's coming is really a high-flying thing. I was given all these hints. Only one person came up and guessed what it was. So I've been trying to think about, I'm not allowed to say the event that we're talking to, what hint I could give out, and I couldn't come up with anything because it's a type of thing that my husband and my teenage boys would like. So think about that. So, and hopefully we can announce it real soon. But it's another one that involves people being here for weeks, you know, using hotels, driving economic impact in the community, and that's what we want. So, and then, of course, the big one, tall ships. We don't, at this point, know how many ships are coming. We're going to fill up the downtown harbor, and if we have to, we'll start putting them along the main channel there. But we are just very excited about that and promoting it already. So let me tell you a little bit about what we're doing to promote the LA waterfront. So a lot of website and social media and advertising, and I have to say, if you haven't gone on our LA Waterfront website, you can get to it from our homepage and just click on that And then you see this fabulous picture that was taken just this last July of Cars and Stripes. You see how many people there? It was just really fabulous. So here's what it looks like, the website, and you get all of the events. One of the things that you can do now, and if you didn't have a chance to watch outside, we have brilliant student interns. We had 120 of them, you know, this summer. And they got together and they filmed these little videos, points on the promenade, and it talks about some little thing you can learn about or see on the promenade. And so all those videos are on that website. They're playing out there so you can see them. And so check it out. We've also been doing, there's points on the promenade. So there's a couple different episodes there. We're also doing a lot of promotional events, and one of the great things since the Iowa and Crafted came is the collaboration that has come about from all of the people that operate those events and the PBID to get together and talk about promoting the waterfront. There's been a lot of cool stuff doing. There's been, you know, print media. We're in Dodger magazine. If you get on a plane and you open up the thing, you're going to see LA waterfront. We're in the Catalina Express magazine. We're in the Where magazine that's in the hotels, the Travel Host magazine, all the kinds of things that visitors tend to pick up, those freebie things. We have LA waterfront new maps. We produced about 52,000 of these, and we have another 20,000 at the print shop. We had special flyers for all the summer events, and we produced a lot of this material, but the collaboration among everybody along the waterfront has been phenomenal, and I give a lot of credit to the people from the Iowa, the people from Crafted, PBID. You're all working hard on this, and I think it is paying off for us, because when we start getting these promoters coming down and they want to host these events in the Outer Harbor, that tells us that we're, you know, people are noticing. And I also subscribe personally to Sunset Magazine, Westways Magazine, and so almost every month I'm seeing something about San Pedro in those magazines. So the word's getting out there, and I want to thank you for your attention.